Renee Marston was only 20 years old when she met the love of her life, or so she thought. In fact, the two of them had known each other for some time before he swept her off her feet. So how could someone be such a good friend to begin with? And how could they hurt her so badly? Let's find out. But who was this guy? What was his name? How did he look? And what was he like? Well, nothing about him was real. She felt trapped where she lived. When she turned 18, she dropped out of school and moved to Brisbane, Australia. There, she made new friends and started going by the name Nikki. Eventually, she even changed her last name. This is quite normal for people who start their adult lives away from home. Many people do this to get a fresh start. Was this just part of his scheme, or was there another reason? It's impossible to say for sure. But we can speculate that he was ashamed of his appearance and didn't think he was good enough for Rena. After all, everyone knows that bodybuilders spend hours upon hours in the gym. But unless you're a professional athlete or are training for a competition, you don't really need to bulk up. Just days after their breakup, Renee received a call from her mother. They weren't written by Evan, but by her so-called ex-boyfriend. He had used the account to post pictures of Rena's home and texts like, "Where are you?" and "I am coming to find you." After detectives gained access to it, they discovered the identity of the person behind it all, Rena's best friend, 21-year-old Gemma. Why would she do something like this? What kind of person could betray her best friend in such a horrible way? For example, she had posted pictures of herself wearing the same necklace that she had given to Rena. Not only that, but she also shared quotes about manipulation and deceit. One of these quotes read, "You should never have trusted me in the first place." Like this case, some catfishing schemes are much more elaborate. For example, there's the case of the military catfish. These people set up fake profiles of US soldiers and reach out to women online. They then tell them that they are currently overseas on a mission and can't wait to return home. Oftentimes they ask for money or other forms of financial assistance. Don't fall for it. You're just dealing with another scammer. It seems like she had a dark side that her friends and family didn't know about. Well, although Gemma was arrested and charged, she committed suicide before she could stand trial. She was indeed guilty of terrible crimes, including stalking, extortion, and fraud. Well, it is important to remember that the catfishers usually have a lot of time to build up their deceptions. This means that when you finally meet the person, everything will seem perfect. They'll know your interests, what makes you laugh, and what makes you cry. In other words, they'll know everything about you. So if you're dating someone online, it's always wise to proceed with caution. Even if you trust the person, it is best to keep your guard up until you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can trust them. In addition to this, she had a history of mental illness and substance abuse. Therefore, it's unlikely that she was innocent. This meant that her motive for the crime would forever remain a mystery. But authorities believe that Gemma was jealous of her friend's relationship with Evan. This could explain why she used his Facebook account to stalk Rena after their breakup. It was clear that this was a warning, but a warning about what? Did he intend to harm her? Was this why he had sent her flowers and gifts? To make her feel special before ruining everything. She told her daughter that she had found some of Evan's personal belongings near their home. When they arrived at her home, they found her lifeless body in her bedroom. She had taken her own life. Although Evan was questioned by the police, he refused to cooperate. They had no choice but to let him go. Despite this, there are some things that don't make sense. For example, Gemma and Evan had known each other since childhood, so why didn't they just ask her to break up with Rena instead of setting up a fake Facebook account? Perhaps they thought that this would be funny, or maybe they didn't think Rena would find out. Whatever the case, the crime has shocked the Australian community. People are still trying to figure out how someone could be so heartless. But afterwards, he was never seen again. The items included his wallet, driver's license, bank cards, and even his cell phone. What was he doing in their neighborhood? Had he been living there all along? Rana thought this was odd, but soon received a message that made her blood run cold. Some people might even say that Evan was too afraid of losing his appearance. Maybe he didn't want to get too hot while spending time with Renee. Whatever the truth was, he refused to ever take the hoodie off. The man that Renee fell in love with wasn't even a man at all. He was just a catfish. Even after taking selfies together, he would always insist that she delete the pictures. Evan told Rana that he worked for an oil company and would often send her pictures of his supposed workplace. Since she had never been to these locations, she couldn't tell if they were fake or not. As time went on, though, she began to notice inconsistencies in his stories. Once he told her that he had a hole in his heart, but a few days later, she heard him talking on the phone about heart surgery he had received as a child. This meant that the two stories couldn't possibly be true. Evan must have noticed her confusion, because shortly after this incident, he stopped calling her. To make matters worse, whenever she asked him about his family, he would change the subject. For example, if she brought up her own family, he would tell her that he didn't want to talk about them. Renee tried to persuade him to open up, but nothing she said made a difference. And if that wasn't bad enough, the person behind the fake online persona turned out to be none other than her own best friend. He loved to take photos of himself flexing his muscles and showing off his physique. However, she needed answers. So she decided to confront him about the things he had said. She demanded that he come clean about his identity, but Evan refused. He then broke up with her, which understandably upset Rana. But if he was so confident about his looks, why did he start catfishing Renee? It's possible that he had done this before and got away with it. If so, he was probably emboldened to try again with someone else. Or perhaps he simply thought he could fool her because he knew her well. Whatever his reasons were, he started talking to her through Facebook Messenger. Coming from a very small town, it's not surprising that Renee wanted more out of life. In 2016, Rena found a new passion, dancing, and spent most of her spare time doing that. But as if fate had a cruel sense of humor, that same year she would meet a guy named Evan. And like the rest of her story, there's little mystery surrounding this man. However, Evan never proposed meeting up in person. Instead, he convinced Rena to sneak out to secluded spots around their city where they could secretly meet. At these rendezvous points, he would surprise her with flowers and gifts. Sometimes he would even bring food. With no one watching, they would eat under the cover of darkness. His name, age, and hometown are all publicly known. What isn't known is why he became infatuated with Renee. Evan worked as a butcher and was obsessed with bodybuilding. At first, the conversation seemed normal. They talked about many things, including their shared love of music. As you may have guessed, Evan didn't show his face during these meetings. He always wore a hoodie that covered his eyes. It's also strange that despite knowing each other for months, Renee never saw Evan's hands or heard his voice. Despite all this, their relationship continued to grow stronger. Although she was confused and worried about her boyfriend, Rana still trusted him. But little did she know that this was all part of the plan. When she opened up Evan's Facebook page, she found a series of disturbing posts. Rana immediately called her mother and the police, but it was too late. As you may have guessed, Evan's Facebook page contained even more secrets. However, we'll never know what really happened because the only person who could have provided the answers is now dead. Even more bizarre is the fact that after Gemma's arrest, a number of disturbing details came to light. But the weirdest part of all is that before killing herself, Gemma wrote a letter saying that she was innocent, but this was almost certainly a lie. After hearing all of this, you may wonder why Rana believed Evan's lies. Sadly, Rana didn't take this advice, but who could have predicted that her best friend was behind the whole thing? Now watch. She vanished from the face of the earth, or check out Most Dangerous Families in America.